The answer is very simple, and we'll be discussing this throughout the rest of the semester, okay? The problem is that you have heaven, you have earth, and you have hell, okay? The heaven is spiritual, it's consciousness. Hell, it's mechanical, it's machines. Okay? We're stuck in between. It's always our choice whether to choose heaven or hell because of free will. Okay? And for most of human history, we have chosen heaven. But eventually, you had people who chose hell. And when you have choose hell, you have access to technology, right? And this technology allows you to conquer and control other people. Okay? But once you control and you conquer and control other people, you have to get them to obey you. If you are enlightened, if you know the truth, you know that none of this matters. We're all gonna die, so why should I listen to you? So, in order for me to control you, I need you to fear death. Okay? I need you to forget God, and I need you to fear death. When you die, dying is the worst thing that can happen to you. Because remember, before people understood, death was just a part of the journey. It was a release. It was an opportunity to reset yourself and come back. Now, death is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. Okay? So how do you forget God? And how do you get people to fear death? You use science. Right? And you create theories like the Big Bang, like evolution, like neuroscience, to make people forget the divinity inside you. Right? So that's what science is for. But unfortunately, for these people, that's not enough. Because eventually, we'll all die, right? So the only way around this is by creating a new technology called transhumanism. Okay? You may have heard of transhumanism. Again, don't worry about the concept now. We'll discuss this later on in the semester. But transhumanism is to surpass humanity, which basically means to defeat death. To upload your brain, to the internet, so you're here forever. Okay? To trap you here forever. And so, now the question then is, why are they doing this? Why are people in power doing this? Okay, so as we've discussed in this class, throughout human history, it's usually secret societies that have the power. Okay? Why? Okay. Well, last class we discussed the idea of bureaucracy, right? Mass bureaucracy. And we discussed how in a mass bureaucracy, bureaucrats don't really want to do anything. They're lazy. Well, guess what? If you're part of a secret society and you're able to coordinate secretly together, you can control the bureaucracy because you're the only people doing stuff. Okay? But then the problem is bureaucracies do not like secret societies. So you have to maintain your secrecy. And how do you do that? You do that through transgression. If you guys are doing bad things together, okay? Now you have blackmail on each other. And therefore, you're committed to keeping each other's secrets. If one of you falls down, everyone falls down together, okay? So now you're committed to maintain the secrets. But the problem is this. The problem is, okay, it's conspiracy, but the moment you're found out, they'll come and arrest you. So how do you work together without actually meeting each other? And the answer is religion. Okay? Or the word we use is eschatology. Religion is just a script, an understanding of the world that allows you to coordinate secretly. Okay? Does all this make sense? Okay. So now these secret societies, they are embedded in a mass bureaucracy, and they're manipulating the bureaucracy, and they're working together to commit transgression. They have their own secret religion. Okay? When you combine these three together, what happens is that they're now forced to invert this understanding, inversion. Why? Because they know that they're doing evil in this world. So when they go meet God, God's going to punish them, right? So the way to get around this is, well, I will just worship someone who's superior to God, who is Satan, okay? Okay. So what they're going to do is they're going to invert this, okay? By celebrating Satan, they can now justify all their transgressions, right? As a way to empower Satan. Also, there's a fundamental weakness in the system, okay? So let's go over the three main characteristics of the system. The first is unity. Okay? So this entire system is complete and unified. Second is symmetry. Symmetry or polarity. And what this means is that if there's good, there must be evil. If there's ugliness, there must be beauty. Why? Because you cannot have one without the other, okay? One thing is meaningless without the other. That's why if you have God, you must have Satan, okay? And the third principle is as above, so below. And what this means is that everything is a reflection of each other. So you can never defeat God, but what you can do is corrupt human beings to worship Satan so that Satan becomes everything. Okay? All right. Are you guys following along? Okay? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to invert this world. And how do you invert this world? What you do is, you know that hell is material. And you know that heaven is spiritual, right? What you do is you brainwash people to worship the material world and abandon the spiritual world. You make money, power, technology, science, the greatest things in the world. Okay? You get rid of God. You get rid of religion. You get rid of compassion. You get rid of love. And that's how you control the world. So in other words, what is happening today is a war between heaven and hell. The people in charge, the secret societies, they are interested. They must make hell into heaven and heaven into hell. They must invert the world in order to maintain their power. Okay? And that's what we will be focusing on for the rest of the semester. This war between heaven and hell. How it came about, who are the major players, and what will happen. Yeah?
So I'm a bit confused about the part where, so the secret society are manipulating their power beyond the rest of the people, and so they are devoting themselves into the power of Satan, right? But my question is, so this God and Satan, they don't interfere to our world, and so these are all just decisions made by the secret society itself.
Yep.
Okay, so in that case, if Satan now goes beyond or has the power that goes beyond God, then God wouldn't do anything to like rebuke or something?
Yeah, okay, great, okay. So, first thing to remember is that because of the principle of free will, God and Satan cannot interfere in this world. Okay? Second is we have to remember that there are different secret societies. There are thousands of different secret societies, okay? But the secret societies, that are able to use all three principles to accumulate power on the most successful. Okay? So that's why they're promoting Satan. Then the third question then is, why doesn't God do anything about this? Okay? And the answer is because if you think about it, only in time of complete darkness, only when Satan rules can humans fully shine. Right? Does that make sense? So God has trust in us. God has faith in us. God loves us completely. God believes that someone will stand up and do the right thing. And when that person does the right thing, the universe will shine. When you go to university, you will be taught this is completely and utterly wrong. Why? Because this assumes that these atoms are matter. They're solid. But in reality, if you go deep enough, you will find that they are actually just vibrations, what we call quantum fields. And they are just vibrations. And what the electron really is an intersection of these quantum fields. Also, these quantum fields can always exist in two states. The first is as a wave. The second is as a particle. Okay? And we can only know if it's a wave or a particle by observing it. And this is what's called a wave function collapse. In other words, all of nature is vibrational. It's energy. And it's only when we observe it, when we interact with it, that it becomes something solid that we can see and measure and touch. Okay? It's called a wave function collapse. Okay? So, this is complicated. So, a physicist named Ernst Schrödinger, he creates a thought experiment called Schrödinger's cat. Okay? You may have heard of it, Schrödinger's cat. And so imagine a box, and inside is a cat. And then the cat, inside the box is also some toxic chemicals that may or may not break. If it breaks, the cat dies. If it doesn't break, the cat's still alive. And what Schrödinger teaches us is that when the box is unopened, we can never know the state of the cat. It's only when we open it can we know it's dead or alive. But before then, it's both dead and alive. Okay? That's simple to understand. But then another physicist introduced a new concept called the friend experiment, or Wigner's friend. And this is more complicated because he says, okay, if you are the experimenter and you open the box, you now know the state of the cat. But what if you're a friend? Okay? You don't see the box. You're outside the laboratory. When the experimenter opens the box, does the wave function collapse? And the answer is, it does not. Okay? It does not. And what this is telling us is there is no objective reality that exists outside of you. When the experimenter opens the box, the wave function collapses for him, but does not collapse for the observer and for anyone else. We have to open the box ourselves in order to see if the cat is alive or dead. Okay? But what if this person tells us? The answer is, it still doesn't collapse. We have to participate in the reality ourselves. And what this is saying, okay, this is hard to understand, is that everyone lives in his or her own reality. Everyone has a unique universe onto himself or herself. And that's what quantum mechanics teaches us. Okay? All right. So now let's try to, based on all this, okay, Kant and quantum mechanics, create a theory of reality. Okay? So what's important to understand is that everything are just vibrations. Okay? That's all it is. It's vibrations. Yeah?
But I thought like quantum mechanics can only be applied on quantum, whereas we are a a, a, a macro creature that is not like.
Yeah, that is correct. But the quantum mechanics is the basis of reality, right? Okay? So everything are just vibrations. Now what happens is that what we need to understand is that if it's vibrations, if it's energy, it's also information. Okay, does that make sense? All right? So what our brains do is, our brains are not independent. Our brains connect to the universe, okay? So as the universe is vibrating, we're receiving information. And then through our experiences, okay, this vibration allows us to turn it into memories. You understand? We're taking this vibrational information, we're taking our experiences, we're combining to memories. Now, this is really important. The memories now go back to the vibrational force. So our memories are connecting to the universe, and they're being stored in the universe. They're being imprinted in the universe. It's an imprint. And of course, this is no different from the internet, right? On the computer, whatever you write is being stored on the internet. So whatever you do is going to change the internet. And you receive information from the internet, okay? So you're participating in the internet, and you're part of the internet. Okay? And the same thing is happening here. Okay? So everything's vibrational. If it's vibrational, it's information. We take the information and we combine with the experience to turn into memories. The memories then go back to the universe. And so it's as though we can implant ourselves into the universe. Okay? Now, this is hard to understand. So what we've done is every single culture has turned this knowledge into a story that is easy for people to understand. Okay? So I'm going to tell you this story. And this story, this framework, I'm actually using Dante. Okay? All right, Dante. What does Dante tell us about the universe? Okay, just a monad, the one, God, who knows, okay? But it's a source of everything. And so what he does is he vibrates, he emanates, he thinks, he breathes. And this creates vibrational force, right? And this vibrational force creates new forces called dyads. Dyads are pairs. And when the pairs come together and vibrate, they create new things, okay? So this is how creation happens, through vibration, through the combination of different forces, okay? Now, what's important to understand is that as the dimensions go lower, the frequency decreases. So at high, it's really fast, right? It's like, ah! Okay? When it goes low, it becomes low frequency, oh, okay? And eventually, you get a point where matter can be created, okay? So this is spirit, this is matter, and this is the world that we live in. Okay? So now the question then is, why is the universe set up in this way? And it has to do with the fact that the universe, the monad, strives for newness, for imagination, for freshness. The problem, though, is that in the spirit world, everything is perfect. Everything is eternal. Everything is immutable. And so by definition, you can feel no pain. You cannot suffer. You cannot make any mistakes. Therefore, you cannot have any new experiences. Therefore, you cannot have any imagination. So we humans exist in order to solve this problem. We humans are corporal, which all it just means is we have bodies, okay? If you have bodies, you get old, you bleed, you get hurt, you fall down, okay? You feel anger, you feel hate. But this allows us to have an imagination. And the imagination allows the universe to grow, to expand, to vibrate. Okay? That's our function. to have experiences that are new, which expands the consciousness of the universe. The universe itself is consciousness. All right. So, for this system to work, there have to be some guiding principles to this universe. The first and most important principle is the principle of free will. Without free will, this system cannot work. If you do what you're supposed to do, you can't have imagination, okay? So you have to disobey. You have to make your own choices. You have to make your own mistakes. And this is what allows the universe to imagine. Okay? But the problem then is, if you have free will, how do you know you're doing good? How do you know you're doing evil? And the answer is the idea of love. Okay? So the monad is the totality of love. We are a part of the monad. Okay? We're part of the monad, and so there's a spark of the monad in us called love. And so when we do good, we feel good because the love, the spark, is growing in us. And it's almost like a magnet, okay? We want to return to the monad. And so we do good because it makes us feel good and allows us to return to the monad. But sometimes, because we live in a world of free will, we make mistakes. Okay? We might hurt someone, or we might traumatize someone, in which case we feel anger. And then this becomes a vicious cycle, okay? So now there's another system set up to ensure we don't get trapped by our hate. And this system is called death. Okay? In this system, death is release. It prevents us from forever making mistakes. Because you could have a terrible life, right? But it's okay because then you go die, you go back into the universe, and now you can observe everything that you did, okay? You can see all the pain you've caused, you can see all the good that you've done. And so you become wiser. And then you come back and you live another life. And again, you can make the same mistakes over and over, but you can also improve, okay? Now, the other thing to remember about the system is that it's our choice whether to create love or hate. Now, love goes back to the monad. But what happens when you create hate? Well, you need to store it somewhere, so it goes into lower dimensions, okay? Hate. All right? So we create new dimensions through hate, through anger, through fear, through bad emotions that cannot return to the spirit world because the spirit world is perfect. And so this is called hell. And this is called heaven. Okay? And this is how the universe is set up. Okay? So I'm just taking the literal reality and turning it into the metaphorical reality, which becomes the basis of all early religions. Okay? So there are different metaphors that we can use to understand this system. But let's look at one from Hinduism and one from Dante, okay? So in Hinduism, there's a metaphor that's very powerful. And the metaphor is that in the house of the god Indra, Indra is one of the most powerful gods of India, there's all these pearls that float, okay? And what do pearls do? They reflect other pearls. And what happens is this, because there's a spark in us, if one of our sparks grows bright, all the other pearls grow bright as well. Okay? So literally, because God is inside of you, because there's a spark inside of you, because you're capable of love, when you do love, you're capable of changing the entire universe. Because your love expands outward, and your love reflects in other people as well. Okay? So Dante uses the idea of mirrors. There's a candle, there's a flame, and we're all mirrors that reflect the candle. Okay? God is the candle, we're just the mirrors. But every one of us, no matter how far we are from God, His flame burns in us. Okay? So you could be far away and you could feel as though God has forgotten you, but there's still the flame inside you. Okay? So for Dante and for our early civilizations, God is love forever, okay? Eternal love. But God is also eternal compassion, eternal forgiveness. God will never forgive you. God will never forget you, okay? He will always forgive you. But you have to believe in God to return to God. You have to live a life of righteousness, of love, of compassion, of imagination if you want to return to God, okay? So that's how the universe is set up. We are here, our divine mission is to expand the consciousness of the universe. And we do that by embracing love and by imagining the world to be a better place. Okay? All right. So now let's go back and ask ourselves this question. If every single early religion, whether it's Taoism or Hinduism or the Egyptians or the Native Americans, if every early religion all believed this and they all knew this, how did we come to forget or deny this with a material reality? Okay? Remember, the Big Bang, evolution, neuroscience. It's to teach us that there's no God. There's no purpose. It's all just random. It's all just material. So how do we get this to this point? Today, I want to look at 3 questions. Why did this war between the United States and Iran start? How will this war end? And what will happen after this war ends? And to answer these 3 questions, we need to discuss the nature and structure of our reality. And the first thing you need to understand, which is very hard, is that our world is a hallucination. It's a collective fantasy, all right? So to understand this idea, let's look at Plato's allegory of the cave. Okay, Plato's allegory of the cave. And so in this cave, we're deep inside the earth and it's dark. There's some light coming in, but not much. And we're all chained in a line together, okay? And there's about 1 million of us. We're on the floor and we're chained to the ground. And we can't really move. We can't get up. We can't move around. Even our necks are shackled. So we can't turn around and see the world around us. Okay, so there's about 1 million of us all sitting down and staring at a wall together. Okay? And this wall is blank. Behind us is great fire. And there are people around this fire, okay? We don't know who they are, but they are free to move around. And what they do is this. They take puppets, and then they reflect the puppets onto the wall, creating shadows. And we're mesmerized by these shadows, because before we're staring at a blank wall, and now there are these moving shadows. And we think these shadows are real, because we don't know any better. So we give them names. Okay, we give them names, and we create a language in order to tell stories about these shadows. And this becomes really our collective reality, okay? So another way of saying this is that reality is a collective conscious which is really a hallucination. Okay? All right. So there are certain things about this reality that we need to keep in mind. Okay? So first of all, what's really important to understand is that what creates this reality is our conscious, our imagination, our perception. Not anyone else, us, okay? So in other words, the wealth in the society is our consciousness. The amount of thought we put into something. And so, let me give you an example. Let's just say that I were to ask you to make a vase to sell on the marketplace, okay? While you're making this vase, if you are listening to music, if you are chatting with a friend, if you're not fully conscious and focused and attentive about making this vase, it won't be very good. But if you are completely focused on creating the most beautiful vase you can, and you're not distracted by anything, then this vase will be beautiful and therefore more valuable in the marketplace. Okay? So in other words, it is our conscious attention that creates wealth in this world. And it is really money or capital that extracts and stores our consciousness and turns it into wealth. All right? So that's a really important concept that most people don't understand, but you need to understand this if we are to understand the nature of reality itself. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to understand. This reality is structured to extract our consciousness in order to create wealth for the elite, for these people. Okay, and historically, there have been different mechanisms that you can use in order to extract and store wealth. All right, so you have maybe religion, okay? And so think of pyramids, right? Because pyramids in Egypt are able to focus your attention and motivate you to do certain actions, okay? To engage in religious worship. But really any temples. So that's one form of capital. Another form of capital, of course, is the idea of stories. Homer, right? Homer is the father of Greek civilization because he wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, which is able to focus people's attention and drive them to great things. Then you, of course, in today's world, you have the Bible. And the main mechanism to extract and store wealth in today's world, of course, is the US dollar. Now, but there's another force that's being created in order to replace the US dollar, and this is called artificial intelligence. All right, so what we'll discuss later on is that there's actually a war going on for the soul of humanity, for the human consciousness between the US dollar, the old world order, and artificial intelligence, the new world order, okay? But I want you to keep this in mind. All right, so that's the first thing I want you to understand. Second thing that I need you to understand is that these people, we don't know who they are, okay? But what we do know is that they don't force us to do anything. There's not enough of them, okay? The way they maintain power is through manipulation and trickery and deception. And we know this because in Plato's allegory of the cave, one day, for whatever reason, one guy decides, you know what? I feel as though this is not the real world. I feel as though there's something outside this cave. So he or she starts messing around with the chains and realizes, these aren't chains. These are just like ropes. I can just like get rid of them. And this chain around my neck, it's like a ribbon. I can snap it off. And he doesn't know why he does this, but he does this. He does do this. And when he does this, they don't even care. Like, whatever, man, do whatever you want. And so he releases himself. He's blind because he's been in the dark all his life, but somehow he recognizes that there's this light, okay, outside the cave. And he is compelled to this light. So he's walking, stumbling to this light. And again, they are like watching him. They're like, we don't care. Do whatever you want, man. They don't stop him. He goes out into the light, and now he's outside, and it's pure light, okay? He's left the cave, and at first he's in pain, and he struggles to reorientate himself to this new world, but then eventually he falls in love with this world. It's a beautiful world, and it's like for him, heaven. And he's like, oh my God, this is the real world. The cave is a fake world that we created ourselves. Let me go back there and tell everyone about the truth. And when he goes back, they, again, the elite, don't stop him. Like, whatever you want, man, do whatever you want, okay? So they who are in power, you think they have an army, you think they have magic, and you think that they're evil, but really, all their power rests on our belief in their power, okay? They themselves don't have any power except to manipulate us. Okay, that's the second thing you need to understand. Now, the third thing you need to understand is that even though this is a fake world, people don't know this. They think it's real. In fact, they believe it is so real that they are willing to die for it. So that when this man who's seen heaven, who's seen the truth, who's come back to tell everyone, these chains that you have aren't real. We can break free and escape into the real world. If he dares to tell them this, together they will kill him. Okay, do you understand? So in other words, the reality is a hallucination. It's created by us, but we fall in love with it. We're so attached to it psychologically and emotionally that if anyone tells us it's fake, we kill them for it. Okay? So it's these three things I want you to keep in mind as we explore our world. Because our world is actually just Plato's cave. All right, so let me show you how. All right. So, you need a force in order to create this reality, to chain us together, okay? And this force, of course, is called the American Empire. All right, the empire. Basically, just the military. But they themselves don't really want to control this world because they're an army, okay? So what they do is they allow the creation of a financial order, a global financial order, which then constructs the game that we play, okay? And these people then construct the reality that we live in, okay? So this is the global financial order. And what is this global financial order? Well, at the very top is something called the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, okay? The central bank of central banks. Below them is the World Bank, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, which controls the rules of the global financial order. And then below them are something called the central banks, okay? So the Federal Reserve in the United States, the the People's Bank of China in China, okay? The Bank of England in England, okay? So together they create the global financial order. And what is the global financial order? It's just to use the US dollar as a main mechanism of wealth extraction and wealth storage. Okay? Really simple. The US dollar. Another way of understanding these people is to think of them as the game masters. Okay? The ones above us who's constructed the game and controlling the rules of the game as we play it. Okay, the game masters. Okay, so once the game has been created with the rules and incentives, now we can play the game. And this game is called the global economy. All right? So when China trades with the United States, when you go off to Europe on vacation, you're all participating in a game created by the financial order, okay? And the purpose of this this global economy is to have everyone play as much as possible so that wealth can be transferred from the world to the United States, the powers that be, okay? And they do this through two mechanisms. The first is the US dollar. So every time you use the US dollar, you're actually paying a tax to America because America has the power to print as much US dollars as it wants, okay? And the second way that it does this is through something called price hierarchy, okay? A price hierarchy. So the global economy is divided into tiers, okay? So resources are considered the cheapest, even though in reality it should be the most expensive, right? Because resources are limited, they're finite. Above resources, of course, is manufacturing. And above manufacturing is knowledge economy. And then the highest is finance, okay? Basically the game masters. All right, so and as we can see, once with this price hierarchy in place, what we can do now is divide the world according to the specialties, okay? So resource, of course, would be Russia. Russia, the Middle East, the GCC, okay? Saudi Arabia, these places, okay? So these places provide resources. Manufacturing then would be China, right? Knowledge would be Europe and the Five Eyes, okay? Basically the Anglosphere, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Britain, and then finance, of course, the United States. Okay? Sorry. The United States. All right, so as you can see, this is a system that benefits the United States and its allies to the detriment of China and Russia. Okay? But this is how the game is structured. Of course, if the United States doesn't like you, what it can do is not allow you to play this game. And these countries, of course, would be North Korea and Iran, among other countries, okay? So China and Russia isn't happy about the system, but at least they get to play. Iran and North Korea are not even allowed to play the game of the global economy. All right? Now, of course, you can't have people believing that, okay, this entire global economy is structured so that the West can steal resources from everyone else, okay? So what you do is you create another layer called the rules-based international order. Okay, multilateral organizations, which includes the UN and the WTO, okay, World Trade Organization. Okay, this is called the rules-based international order. But it's really controlled by the empire, okay? So all these are just basically shadows on the wall that the empire is creating, projecting, okay? To fool us into behaving the way the empire wants. All right, so now that you have the system in place, what you need to do is indoctrinate people into believing that the system is fair, just, and good, okay? And you do that through three mechanisms. These three mechanisms, of course, are education, media, and culture, right? What is education? Well, schools, guys, and universities, academia. You think that you go to university to learn knowledge. No, you don't. You go to university to be brainwashed into believing that this system is not just fair, but actually what really makes this system work is the rules-based national order, okay? You even think about empire. So that's education. Then, of course, you have media, which is CNN, BBC, New York Times. Each time you read an article, you think you're receiving news. You're not receiving news. You're being brainwashed into believing that this order is fair, just, and appropriate, okay? A phrase that you'll keep on hearing over and over is rules-based international order. Okay, but it's not a rules-based international order. It's Plato's cave. It's a deception. And the last, of course, is culture, which is Hollywood. And, you know, television shows, sitcoms, okay, things that you absorb every day. There's high culture and there's low culture. All right, so these are three mechanisms in which this order is basically indoctrinated into everyone, so that you don't even know this is a deception, okay? You believe that this is reality itself. And this is all to create values and norms. Okay, just the way you see the world, which allows for the creation of a legal structure. So that if you break the rules, it's not that the elite will come after you. They don't have to come after you because everyone else will come after you. Okay? If you're that guy who discovers that this is all deception, they'll kill you. Okay? Not the elite, but the people around you will kill you because you're breaking their fantasy. Okay? You're destroying their fantasy. Alright, so this is a very effective system. The problem, though, is that you need to spread the system, okay? So there's three problems, okay? First of all, you have to protect this system, the status quo. Then you have to spread this system as well, okay? And then you also need to justify this system. What I want to show you is that Jeffrey Epstein is one of the operators of the system. He works for the Rothschilds, as well as secret societies, as well as venture capital, and he is embedded in science, crime, and intelligence, okay? And again, the evidence is something called the Epstein files. All right, so let's look at the Epstein files. Okay, so this is Jeffrey Epstein, and this is Donald Trump. All right. Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019 in a federal prison. And he was being charged with many crimes, and the FBI ran an investigation into him. And just recently, the United States, called the Department of Justice, the DOJ, on their website, they released about 3 million documents pertaining to the Epstein investigation. And a lot of these are emails. And what you discover is that he knows everyone who's powerful in the world. So for the longest time, it was believed that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent, okay? And his job was to lure powerful Americans such as Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, to his island called Epstein Island, where he would film them engage in compromising activities. And then he would blackmail them, okay? And that was, for the longest time, what people understood to be Jeffrey Epstein's role. But then when you look at the emails, what you recognize is that, no, actually, that's what he did for fun. Actually, he made most of his money in arms trafficking and in money laundering. Also, Bill Gates wasn't going to Epstein Island to give Jeffrey Epstein money. Jeffrey Epstein, he went to ask for money. Think about this, okay? Bill Gates, once before the wealthiest man in the world, he was begging Jeff Epstein for money. Think about that. All right? Okay, so let us look at who he is. Okay, this is Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, as you know, is one of the wealthiest men in America. And Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein are arranging a time to meet. Again, it's not Jeffrey Epstein is seeking these guys out, they're seeking him out, okay? Elon Musk, the wealthiest man in the world, he's actually trying to arrange an appointment with Jeffrey Epstein. All right, why? Because Jeffrey Epstein says, I represent the Rothschilds. All right? Your money is fake. Your money is stock market money. Your money is an illusion. I represent real money, real power, real wealth. Okay? All right. The Rothschilds. All right. So Jeffrey Epstein is very close with the Rothschild family. Why? Well, this is Irena de Rothschild, one of the members of the Rothschild family. Okay? And in December 2018, okay, this is a year before he dies. All right. Jeffrey Epstein sends Aaron de Rothschild an email saying, hey, let me tell you something really funny. Harvard is saying that when Hitler was poor, he lived in a home, a charity home, that was financed by 3 wealthy families who are Jewish. And who are these 3 wealthy families? They're the Rothschilds, right? Then there are the Epsteins, me, and the Gutmans. So these 3 families, Rothschilds, Epsteins, and Gutmans, go way back centuries. All right? So Epstein is a member of one of the most powerful families in the world. All right? Now, Irena de Rothschild responds and says, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory, right? It's just saying that the Jews created Hitler. And Epstein gets angry at her and says, no, it's 100% true, man. Hitler was selling his clothes and already living in a shelter funded by Jews. Epstein, Rothschild, and Gutman, no conspiracy. It's really true, okay? The Epsteins, who are we? We're the Vienna bankers. All right? We've been around for the longest time. You Rothschilds think you're powerful? Well, we're powerful too. Okay? All right, let's continue. All right, so the FBI is running an investigation on Jeffrey Epstein, and they created a file on him. And there's a confidential human source, a spy basically, who they recruit to tell them who Jeffrey Epstein is and what his network is. And the FBI is sort of blown away by what they discover, okay? So, Amber, could you help me read, please? Okay, all right. All right, so I want you to start at the top, and it's very hard to read, okay, but try your best.
Okay. Jeffrey Epstein was represented by
Alan Dershowitz, okay? Alan Dershowitz is a Harvard professor, He's one of the most powerful men in America, okay? Alan Dershowitz. Keep on going.
CHS remembered Dershowitz tell Alex Ocasio, U.S. Attorney of Southern District of Florida at the time, that Epstein belonged to both U.S. and Allied intelligence services.
Okay, so in 2008, Epstein was arrested in Florida for doing inappropriate behavior, okay? And Alan Dershowitz comes in and says, hey, you can't arrest this guy because he works for intelligence. Actually, the truth of the matter is, intelligence works for him, okay? Keep on going.
CHS shared phone calls between Dershowitz and Epstein during which he/she took notes. After these calls, Mossad would then call Dershowitz to debrief. Epstein was close to the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and trained as a spy under him. Barak believed Netanyahu was a criminal. Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United Arab Emirates are allied against Qatar, Turkey, Iran, and Syria.
That's not okay. All right. So here it says that Epstein worked for Mossad. That's not true, okay? All right, so you look at Epstein's life. He actually started his career at Dalton. Dalton is one of the most prestigious elite schools in America. That's where all the most powerful, wealthiest families send their children, okay? He was hired as a teacher. Then he went to work for Bear Stearns, which is a financial firm, and there he learned finance. But then he went to work for Doug Leese. Who is Doug Leese? Doug Leese is an arms trafficker involved with Iran-Contra. Okay, so he's one of the biggest global arms traffickers in the world. And then he started to work for Barak, who is the prime minister or the former prime minister of Israel. All right, so everyone's like, okay, well, it's because he sucks at everything, and that's why he was being moved from one place to another. Okay, but another way of saying this is he's an operative, and he's being trained in how power works by mentors. Does that make sense? Let's just say I have a big company, right? And I'm a chairman. My son is going to inherit this company. How do I train him to be a good boss? Well, I have him work in different departments of the company, and I have mentors train him in these different departments, right? So what is Dalton? Dalton is education, right? What is Bear Stearns? Finance. What is Doug Leese? He is criminal, arms trafficking. And who is Barat? He is intelligence, right? Does that make sense, guys? He's being trained, mentored in the different sectors of power in the world. All right? Keep on reading.
Masha Drokova telephone number is based in Silicon Valley. She has been running a firm called Day One Ventures, which is supposedly an early-stage investment company. She used to be Russian President Vladimir Putin's main contact in the Russian youth movement. CHS and Drokova spoke, but Drokova did not talk at all about technology. Instead, she looked at CHS and said, "You knew Epstein, didn't you?" She said Epstein was a wonderful man.
Okay, so Epstein was connected with Vladimir Putin, okay? All right, let's read the last section. This is the most important, okay?
CHS advised Shabbat.
Okay, Shabbat Lubavitch, right? The organization we talked about. Yes, keep on going.
Shabbat is doing everything they can do to co-opt the Trump presidency. Shabbat is basically state-sanctioned Judaism. It is used by Putin to keep tabs on all the Russo-Jewish oligarchs. On the day Trump was elected president, Ivanka Trump and Jared
Kushner.
Jared
it doesn't say Kushner, but keep on going.
Were at the gravesite of Rabbi Schneerson.
Okay. So remember last class, I showed you a video of Netanyahu approaching a rabbi called Rabbi Schneerson and saying, "Will you give me your blessing?" And Schneerson says, "Yes, I will. And please hurry up and make the Messiah come." Okay? So it's all interconnected. Okay, Netanyahu, Schneerson, the Trump family, Putin. And it's all connected through Shabbat Lubavitch and Jeffrey Epstein, okay? Keep on going.
Who was the most powerful rabbi in the Shabbat network. Jared didn't disclose his stake in Cadre because of its ties to the Russian state, NFI. CHS believed this is the real Russian collusion story. Kushner had moved a lot of Russian investment money around. The FBI should investigate Kushner's family charities to find evidence of corruption and money laundering. Shabbat routinely uses charities to launder money.
Okay, so this is it, guys, okay? This is it. The FBI did an investigation. What they discovered is that Jeffrey Epstein and Jared Kushner are both part of this transnational network that's able to co-opt different nation states, including Russia, including America. And they're all connected to this other transnational religious organization called the Shabbat Lubavitch. And their leader is Rabbi Sneerson. It's all one big network, all right? And let's look at this. Okay, this is a report, a secret government report. What happened was that when Americans went into Afghanistan, the British went in too. And Prince Andrew, who is the brother to the king, asked the British government to investigate investment opportunities in Afghanistan. Okay, so this is the British government. And so whatever they report has to be confidential. It's basically state secret. And this report tells Prince Andrew where's the best place to invest in Afghanistan. And what does Prince Andrew do? He emails it directly to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay? You think these guys work for the government, Prince Andrew. No. They work for Jeffrey Epstein, who works for the Rothschilds. All right? All right. This is Libya. All right. So in February 2011, okay, this is July 2011, America starts bombing Libya. And it seems as though Gaddafi will fall. And already Jeffrey Epstein and his friends are discussing how to make money out of this, right? Because they know that Libya has many assets frozen in American banks. So once a new government comes into place, then this new government will want the money back, right? And Jeffrey Epstein and his friends are like, let's do this for them and get a commission. All right? Can you read?
Understood. Remember, there are already 80 billion in frozen funds/assets internationally, of which $32.4 billion is in the US, and it is estimated that the real number is somewhere between 3 to 4 times this number in sovereign, stolen, and misappropriated assets. So if we can identify/recover 5% to 10% of these monies and receive 10% to 25% as compensation, we are talking about billions of dollars. But the real carrot is if we can become their go-to guys, because they plan to spend at least $100 billion next year to rebuild their country and jumpstart the economy. Also, remember, Libya is a rich country, as its population is 2 million less than the city of New York, and it has the 9th largest crude oil and natural gas reserves on the planet, and a literacy rate of almost 80%.
Okay, do you guys understand what's happening, okay? These are parasites. They look at geopolitics and they're like, how can we take advantage of geopolitical events to make the most money for ourselves? All right? And you're like, okay, well, Jeffrey Epstein is gone. Oh, sorry, okay, all right. So something else I want to discuss with you is Bitcoin, okay? So this is a Guardian article that shows that Jeffrey Epstein was helping to finance the development of Bitcoin, all right? But not only that, I want to show you this picture. This happened in 2004 at Harvard, okay? This is Larry Summers, who is the president of Harvard University. This is Steven Pinker, one of Harvard's most famous scholars. And this guy is Jeffrey Epstein, all right? Who's paying for this dinner? Probably Jeffrey Epstein. And you're like, what is happening here? And again, I keep on telling you guys this. You think academia is about pursuing truth, doing research. No, it's not. It's about protecting and justifying the status quo. It's about providing a network for powerful people to meet together and to work together. Okay? And the Jeffrey Epstein files reveals this, how corrupt academia and science are. It's all part of this huge transnational network, this grand alliance between science, crime, and intelligence in order to extract as much value from the world as possible, okay? These are parasites. So, life, the world is not that simple. If you want to know who will rule the world in 100 years' time, just figure out in which society do wealthy, well-educated women choose to have children. And then that society will rule the world. Okay? It's that simple, right? Well, unfortunately, if you do it that way, you get a really, really disturbing answer. Okay? So this is per capita GDP, okay? So how much people make. All right? So obviously, if you're 0, you're very poor. And if you move to over here, you're very wealthy. Okay? So the United States is the wealthiest society in the world, right? Sure, we can understand that. Then this is the fertility rate, which tells us how many children women have on average. Okay, so again, 2.1 is replacement rate, okay? 2.1 is replacement rate. So the United States is actually below replacement rate, but the United States doesn't really care because it can import immigrants, okay? China is probably around here somewhere, okay? Angola is up here, but it's poor. So what this map tells us is a country that is most likely to be dominant for the next 50 years is this country, Israel. Okay? It is the only wealthy, Western, high-tech society in which women choose to have more than 2 kids. Okay, this is what game theory teaches us. And yeah, I know there are people who are like, yeah, but Israel, it has 9 million people. And it's in the middle of a desert. And everyone hates Israel. I understand that. Thank you very much, okay? I understand that. But if you just analyze how the game works, okay? If you just look at it objectively from a game theory perspective, you are forced to conclude that Israel right now has the major advantage over everyone else. Now, it is possible that societies will change the fertility rate as the world changes, okay? But I'm saying that given the current state of things, Israel, their growth trajectory is very, very high. But then the question then is, okay, why is it that Israel, they are different from everyone else? And the answer is because the world hates them, okay? Because they think they are different from everyone else and they must unite together to survive. So in Israel, fertility is status, okay? If you are a woman and you give birth to a lot of kids, that means that you love Israel. That means that you are doing what you can in this war for survival. It means you are a patriot. Okay? But this has to do with religion. So, what the West has done is not only has it created a dating game where a woman can choose to have kids, but the Western world has also given up on religion and embraced materialism, right? So what is valued in our world, in the West, it's not patriotism or love of family or religious duty, it's just how many Instagram followers you have. It's how many YouTube subscribers you have. It's how much money you have. Okay, that's all that matters. So given the current state of events, it's very hard for the Western world and really for China to survive for the next 50 years, okay? And I know like, well, China has 1 billion people, so even though, you know, we're only giving birth to 10 million kids a year, we'll still be around for a long, long time, okay? So at this rate, by 2100, China will be at a population of about 600 million. That's still a lot of people, man. Okay. Here's the problem, though. Okay. This is South Korea. Okay. South Korea is like the worst case scenario. And for South Korea, this is actually the best case scenario where, okay, given current trends, and let's just pretend that nothing bad happens to South Korea. Well, by the year 2100, you'll have a situation like this where the vast majority of people are over 65 and you have no kids, okay? That is a zombie society where no one works and everyone just, I don't know, walks around the park every day. No one works, so the economy has collapsed. Okay, so look at this trend where we are now in here, okay, where the majority, it's still a working population, which is good, you need that for the economy, but by the time you hit 2040, okay, you've got this huge dependency and a cratering population, okay? You guys see this, where we are? Okay, so we're at 2020, right, okay, all right, so it's still not too bad, but by the time you hit 2040, look at this. Okay, look at this, where you have absolutely no kids, and then you have lots and lots of retirees. Okay? And then, by the time you hit 2060, oh my God. Right? Your population, your working population has decreased by half, by 50%. All right? So, if things stay the same, if nothing happens, South Korea will be dead in, I don't know, by 2150, okay? Best case scenario. But what we know from history is that societies do not die naturally. Eventually, South Korea will be forced into wars, economic crises. So this trend will just increase. And so if North Korea got past 2080, I'd be very surprised. Okay? I would be surprised by 2040, South Korea were to face collapse as a nation state. Okay? Because you need these people to work, but guess what? You also need them to fight wars. So if North Korea ever threatened South Korea, most of your adult population would be dead. Okay? So South Korea cannot fight a war now. The prospects for South Korea is utterly hopeless. There's nothing South Korea can do about this because South Korea is an extremely materialistic society where the only way to get ahead is by making a lot of money, okay? And if you're a middle-class person in South Korea, it makes no sense for you to have 3 kids. It makes sense for you to have 1 kid and put all your resources into this 1 kid in the hopes that he passes the college examination, gets into a good university, and then gets a good job at Samsung, which is the only company in South Korea, okay? Samsung. Right? So the situation is pretty dire in South Korea. All right. Okay, that's it for today. Any questions, guys, about what we've learned? Yeah. Okay.